to the next speaker, DeVore. She's going to present neuroimaging during motion with portable, wearable, diffuse optical tomography. The floor is to you, Anna.
Hello, my name is Hannah. I'm from Washington University in St. Louis, and I'm presenting on neuroimaging during motion with portable, wearable, diffuse optical tomography. In vivo studies come with a host of challenges, requiring techniques and tools that are non-invasive, safe, and free from ionizing. Okay, we're back. Sorry. Oh, no. Sorry, technical difficulties. This one is back now. I think so. Tools that are non-invasive, safe, and free from ionizing radiation, while simultaneously high resolution and high SNR. A wealth of neuroimaging modalities have been used in the advancement of neuroscience, each with their own strengths and weaknesses. There we go. However, as the field continues to grow, there's also growing desire to improve the ecological validity of studies, introduce more naturalism into the tasks and environments, and increase the range of studies that are feasible at all. However, some of the limitations of established technologies make it difficult to transition them to new tasks and environments. This is where diffuse optical tomography comes in. While not as widespread of a technology as EEG and MRI, it possesses useful capabilities, offering greater insensitivity to motion with, oh no, I did not mean to do that. Okay. Greater insensitivity to motion with some degree of portability. For example, motor imitation studies are relevant to developmental neuroscience, but these tasks can't be performed in an MRI and induce artifacts into EEG. Traditional DOT systems allow for some degree of upper extremity movement, however, they still restrict what motions are possible. Other examples of challenging imaging conditions include naturalistic environments or where participants interact with their environments, or high motion populations such as those with tremors who tend to have lots of motion artifacts in traditional neuroimaging modalities. Diffuse optical tomography is an expansion on the closely related FNIRS. Infrared light is used to measure the dynamics of hemoglobin oxygenation, and thus the DOT signal is closely related to bold fMRI. Though tissue may seem opaque in the visible, in the infrared range, absorption is low and light can travel centimeters into the tissue, though it spreads diffusely. You can test this by putting your finger over a light, and though the short wavelengths are blocked, the long wavelength red and infrared shine through. Since at those wavelengths, the primary cause of signal fluctuations are changes in hemoglobin, blood oxygen dynamics dominate the DOT signal. The use of two or more wavelengths of light allows for the separation of signals arising from oxy and deoxyhemoglobin. This is the same physics as pulse oximeters, though instead of measuring absolute signals from one point, DOT uses multiple measurements to mathematically localize where in a volume these signals were originating. FNIR systems often use sparse arrays of optodes that are lightweight and somewhat portable, but that comes at the cost of resolution and field of view. In contrast, traditional high-density DOT systems offer better resolution and deeper tissue sampling, but sacrifice portability, as the greater channel count means a greater system weight. Large field of view DOT systems frequently use support structures to reduce the effective weight that participants experience, but those structures also restrict motion. We present a new wireless wearable DOT system which combines the best of DOT and FNIRS. It has the high channel count and resolution of traditional DOT combined with the portability and lightweight of FNIRS. Instead of the usual heavy racks of electronics and bulky fibers, we have condensed all of the optoelectronics down into small, lightweight modules that fit into a lightweight cap. This new device is completely untethered and portable. It's powered by a battery carried in a backpack, and because of this, participants can move, walk, and interact with their environment in naturalistic ways not previously feasible. It has 196 optodes, giving rise to about 4,000 measurement channels, each channel arising from a pair of one source and one detector. There's 13 millimeter spacing between the optodes, making it high density, and it weighs about 1.76 kilograms, which is about the same as an American football helmet. To demonstrate the capabilities of our new WHD system, we began with replicating several tasks well established in the neuroscience literature. We tested a variety of tasks with about 20 participants in total, though not every subject has completed every task. Even on an individual subject basis without group averaging, we find activation patterns consistent with our expectations. Shown here are individual subject maps for a few of our tasks, and they demonstrate the functional neuroimaging results that replicate the literature. These are block average oxyhemoglobin maps where the bright spots indicate increase in activity relative to baseline, and bluer spots represent reduced activity relative to baseline. On the left, we have language processing tasks, where auditory word stimuli activate auditory cortex in the temporal lobes, visual word stimuli activate visual cortex in the occipital lobe, and higher language tasks, where the subject must generate a word in response to a stimulus, have a diffuse activation pattern consistent with the literature. On the right, we have a motor task, where the participant taps their tongue inside of their mouth, which activates the somatomotor face area, and as we can see, it is dorsal to the auditory activations. Beyond the expected block average maps, we also find clear replicable results on an individual trial basis. These are individual blocks from the tongue tapping tasks, and they show consistent activations in the somatomotor face area. Having demonstrated some basic neuroimaging tasks, we wanted to move on to some harder tasks as well. Retinotopic mapping of the visual field requires good SNR and resolution. Here, we show single subject results made using a rotating checkerboard wedge. Mapping wedge location to the visual field results in a smooth, contiguous map of the visual field, as expected, with good intra-subject test-retest reliability. We can also test the single trial consistency of these tasks by performing decoding. In this case, a 36-way task corresponding to the 36 wedge positions. The accuracy is very high and the error is very low, even with so many options for the decoder to select from. Here, the RMSE error is less than one wedge position difference. After confirming that our device performs well under typical imaging conditions, it was time to test how well it handles motion, starting with an instructed motion task. Because the system moves along with the participant, acceleration and displacement are not good measures of motion artifacts. Instead, we use GVTD, which is akin to the DeVore's metric from MRI. We cued participants to perform 5 types of motion exhibited by fidgety subjects in traditional studies. In these plots, we compare GVTD values in green on the WHD system to traditional fiber-based systems of comparable channel count and field of view in black. The red lines indicate stimulus timing. Each plot represents an exemplar time trace from each of these 5 types of motions. We found that for rigid body motions, the 4 plots on top, the GVTD values are much lower than on the fiber-based system. For our non-rigid motion, on the bottom, the GVTD values were comparable between the two systems. Because in this type of non-rigid motion, the scalp and muscles stretch, slide, and compress and change the shape of the head underneath of the optodes, thus changes the path that the light travels through the head. This makes it a more difficult type of motion to design for, but the artifacts induced by this are not large compared to some of the other types of motions in a traditional fiber system. In addition to measuring motion artifacts on their own, we also wanted to see how motion artifacts do or don't impact other tasks. We had participants perform other types of tasks, such as visual or auditory, and added in motion on top. This graph depicts GVTD values from some of these concurrent motion tasks, in this case visual. This graph uses the same Y scale, showing that despite the intentional motion, GVTD values remain low. Time periods of motion have small GVTD values near the low baseline levels of motionless periods. Here are activations from a visual task with flashing checkerboard stimuli. In both systems under no motion conditions, the activations are, as we expect, strong, focal, and contralateral to the stimulus. The difference comes when we add concurrent motion. On a traditional fiber DOT, the signals are completely obscured by motion artifact. In contrast, on the WHD system, we can clearly still see the activations with little motion artifacts without motion correction. In fact, the WHD maps are so good that even with the large amplitude instructed motion, the accuracy on a 3-way decoding task was very high, reaching 100% in such subjects. While doing this on the fiber system, the accuracy falls harshly and the data points are no longer separable. In short, the WHD system is capable of imaging and decoding during motion when the fiber system is not. Tolerance to cued motion is good, but that doesn't make a system portable. Using it while walking does. We had subjects listen to auditory stimuli in both typical seated conditions and also while walking around the room. As you can see, while walking around, the WHD system is still able to clearly detect auditory activations, again without any motion correction. We want to go even further and test whether we can collect data from truly naturalistic behaviors that people would exhibit in real life. We're just beginning this part of the project, but we've collected some data from participants in fully naturalistic environments, engaging in complex natural behaviors, including playing the piano and social interactions. The photos shown here are all candids taken from actual data collection sessions. We can and do take this system to different locations in different buildings where people can interact with objects and other people. This is just getting started, and we're still exploring all the different ways we might use our system. These videos show just a few of the things we've tried, and as we continue this work, we hope to be able to investigate many new and different types of activities. Thank you all for your attention, and consider checking out some of the other posters being presented by our group.
Thank you very much. One quick question in the Q&A is, does DOT, is it compatible with simultaneous EEG recordings?
Yes.
That's a very brief answer. There you go.
I have a question. How and can you trace the signal from subcortical structures?
No, not really. You can measure the cortical surface, but by the time light reaches that deep, you've basically hit the noise floor. So that is one drawback of using optical technologies.
Thank you so much.